it's tricky. And I can tell you right now in this market, it's tough to get key money because restaurants are hot. I think which is great. I'm glad to see it. But it's tough to quantify that number. I think the value of the leases is really what that key money is all about.
It's waiting on fries. That you don't get it? What do you mean you don't get waiting on fries?
Hopefully the customer never hears waiting on fries, but all this time on the entree and it's perfectly executed and then you're like,
ready to go.
I forgot to fire the fries.
I just always use that when I forgot to put somebody's order in and I was like, hey, I'm just waiting on the fries. It's going to be 2 more minutes. Realistically, I come back 10 minutes with the food.
Exactly. They just know that their food's not there and the server said they're still waiting on fries.
I guess we're just waiting on fries. The smiles in this room are very graceful. What do you guys got going on this week, huh?
Well, actually, I had some free time finally. It was the first full work week of the year, so everybody's kind of back to their routine and hating on winter a little bit. So I had a random weeknight off. I had some time to myself. Kicked down, I took a visit to Brew on 40 Division Street in New Rochelle. Went to go visit Chris, talk about his beers and ciders and what he's got going on.
And what does he have going on?
He has a lot of interesting stuff going on. It's actually a really nice space.
Was that your first time over there?
It was my first time physically there.
Yeah, it's a very nice space.
I've spoken to Chris a lot. He's visited me a lot, so
it's time to return the favor.
I didn't want to be selfish. That was my first time actually there.
Yeah.
And he hooked me up with a nice flight. I tried a nice sour. I tried a nice apple beer he collabed with Yonkers. It was a nice porter that he poured me and an imperial stout.
Porterito?
Yes.
Very good.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. So we're anxiously awaiting Chris's next pick to send to us. Obviously, he sent us the Charlie Boy Brown Ale the first week, and we're going to feature his next draft. Hopefully one of those 4 will be what he sends us so we can pour what he wants you to drink at the restaurant.
This is my favorite season, I think, for beers at the end of the day. Those browns, those porters, those stouts, the oatmeals, all that. I'm ready to light candles, turn the lights down low, and set the mood. That's how I feel come this part of the season.
I'm just kind of waiting for summer. I could care less about all that other stuff that you just said. But
you've got a long way to go if you're waiting for
it's not that far. We're almost there. They'll start releasing the spring seasonals next week, and then we're in the summer else. The only nice part about this part of the season is that I have extra time to do some things because Monday and Tuesday kind of suck.
Are you serious about spring seasonals come out in the 3rd week of January?
February, middle of February, boom.
All right, well, you've got 2 more weeks of January.
The cash sheets, I'm sure, reflect that we're in the slow season here a little bit now, huh?
Yeah, they reflect not a lot, which is not good.
So with that said, though, too, we were having a discussion here about how can we capture more audience or get people excited in these time periods where things slow down, right?
How to make the best use of your off hours or your off season.
In your restaurant space or your bar space or, whatever the space is that you're looking to occupy where there's less people frequenting it than you're used to. And a lot of those different ways are just easy. You just have to do it, right? It's a matter of actually putting an idea into a solid platform and saying, hey, we're going to execute this now, and we're going to bring up our cash sheets as a result.
For sure. I mean, the big thing is to not get lazy, which is kind of easy to happen when, the business slows down, there's not much to go on.
Right.
You say, like, I'm just going to take a bunch of time off and not work on it, and then that's how you start, getting into some trouble. You can't get lazy in the off season. You definitely take a vacation. This is the best time to take a vacation.
By far the best time to take a vacation.
So I'll be out in Tampa for a week in February, and I'll get out of here. But, the thing to capitalize now is while we have time is to get creative and look at ways that we can, create new values or new experiences for the customers, test them out in the next couple weeks before the weather turns and everybody starts coming out again. You get that first nice day when it's like 60 degrees and everybody thinks it's 90 and goes to the beach. But
speaking of, it's supposed to be like 60 degrees this weekend.
It is supposed to be 60 degrees this weekend.
Looking forward to that.
Unless you're in Cali, then you're enjoying beautiful weather year round.
Which none of us are, so we don't have to worry about that.
They're cheating.
The one thing that I really tried to put into effect a couple years back, and keep in mind I'm very bar focused as far as the restaurants and bar scene goes. We had such an empty space during the day. Nobody was really coming into this one bar that I was working behind at some point. And I brought up this great idea where I said, hey, why don't we just start a bartending academy here in this reputable bar area where it's known for high volume, and guys could actually get some real hands-on experience behind a real bar and not something in, a local, hey, we're going to give you a certificate at the end of this bar training, and now you know what's in a Manhattan. Now you know what's in a pina colada. Now you know these things. And you don't really get that full hands-on experience, I think, in these outdated platforms where guys are trying to teach people how to become bartenders. So the idea was to start this bartending academy in this place during the day where you could wind up selling a spot to learn how to bartend through a full course, if you will. And then you could present that to other bars when you want to go get a job and say, hey, I learned in this reputable space, in this high volume area, do you want to hire me? Which I think would up your chances significantly versus somebody that goes, hey, I learned at the Bartending Academy, check out my certificate. Just.
Bartending Academy, check out my certificate. That basically says I've never been behind the bar ever, but I know how to make all the drinks.
I know how to shake a drink.
Like I can tell you all the ingredients in that drink, but if you need me to make 5 of them really fast on a Friday
and pour a beer
and talk to people, I can't do it.
I'm going down hard.
Exactly. The question is, how much do these places charge? I see kids all the time in the forums and whatnot saying that, they just took a course at their local bartending academy or whatever they call it. And I just want to follow up with them and say, did you get hired? Did you really struggle to get hired?
Well, I think they guarantee you placements sometimes, but usually those placements are like at country clubs or something like that.
Or a VFW.
Which is not the greatest scene. The other thing that comes out of that is if you're just teaching random people that that don't want to be a bartender but would like to know a little bit more about what they're consuming, it's a great word. It's a great word of mouth because they're gonna go tell their friends, "Oh, I learned how to do this at wherever they went."
It's entertainment factor.
It's entertainment factor, and so that's cool. Where's this place? And you get people talking about it. How did that program work out? By the way,
we didn't put it into effect.
Didn't execute. Somebody got lazy during the slow season and didn't execute the.
I bet you went on vacation to Tampa.
I wonder how many great ideas were born and just never executed because you had to take a vacation or something like that.
So many of them. And another place that started doing something great. It's not necessarily that they do it in the off hours, but maybe the slower days. Pax Romana, for example, they do the pasta classes.
I had it on my tip of my tongue. I was just going to bring that up as well.
It's like $60 per person, $70 per person. You make a bunch of pasta fresh. They teach you how to do everything. It really becomes a event to do with the friends, almost like a paint and sip would be, right? Yeah. They give you a bottle of wine. They let you have a couple drinks. You make your pasta. You laugh a little bit. Karen, Becky, and Sue all take photos of the pasta they made. And then
those kind of classes are pretty trendy nowadays.
They are very trendy.
Yeah. We did a couple of things like that.
We did. We went through a couple different programs that got people to come in and learn different things. And I think that lets your customers, or I don't like to say customers, lets your
I hate that
your
word.
clientele.
It's my biggest pet peeve.
The people who are enjoying what you're putting out are coming in and they're becoming more familiar. Yeah, they're becoming more familiar with, and they feel like they're a part of the team, which they are. Because if they're not there, then there's no team.
Right.
So
totally.
And it does another thing. It provides a level of authenticity for the restaurant, right? So if you go into Pax and they're making, they have a pasta making class, obviously you've seen the propaganda that they're making fresh pasta. But like when you're actually making the pasta, you're like, these guys are actually really making this pasta all the time. It's authentic when you go in there. Kind of like when you go in there at lunch and, you see, a bunch of the older women making the pasta for the day. Mm-hmm. And it's like, hey, these guys are like true, to their roots. They're not just like telling you one thing and doing another, and it just makes the whole thing better.
It really is all the difference in the world as well. Fresh pasta. It's so easy to make. It's not expensive. I'm sure Nooms, I don't know why he's smiling. You ever make fresh pasta, Nooms?
All the time, but this is just turning into like a pasta advertisement.
There's nothing wrong with pasta. It's wintertime.
Trust me, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with pasta. The last time I made lasagna, I made some fresh pasta, made a whole day out of it.
Isn't it bulking season?
I don't know.
At the gym? I don't know. I don't use those terms.
You just came from the gym.
Yeah, but I don't say bulking season.
Neither do I. Why'd you look at me?
So how hard is it to offer a cooking class in somebody's restaurant?
It's typically not too difficult. When we did it, we were approached by WCC. They're like continuing education program.
WCC is Westchester Community College, by the way.
Yes. So they had a program where they would bring a group of people in. These people had paid for X amount of classes at X amount of restaurants throughout Westchester, and then come in for the night. You show them how to make a couple of dishes. You end up feeding them, and they just have a good time sitting around watching you and talking to you about it.
I mean, that's accurate. That's the way it went down.
So there's profit margins involved in this.
Well, as long as you get those people to drink a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah.
because you're making money on the booze.
You're making money. You want
Well,
to.
they sell tickets, so you're making
They sell
money
tickets,
off the tickets.
yeah, but you don't want to go crazy on the ticket because you want people to come in.
Right.
So you kind of want to get them to engage in some of the other things you got going on.
Didn't we offer them like incentive to come back or something
Yeah,
like that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
You could just definitely, hey, next time you come, here's an appetizer, or if you made something that night, maybe like here's something for whatever we made, and next time you come out, you get to get the whole dish without you having to do all the work.
And I guess that acts almost as a loss leader to some extent.
Yeah, I mean that's.
Except you're not taking a loss.
Yeah, you don't
on
want to take you want to maybe be at cost on the whole event, and then hope you can turn in some liquor
into,
sales,
like, future profit or something like that.
liquor sales or future profits,
Yeah.
and get people hooked on a Monday.
And a loss leader, for those out there that haven't really heard that term before, is something that you use to get people into the building. You're not really taking a loss on it necessarily, but you're really hoping that maybe somebody orders something else at full price. You see this at happy hour a lot of times when somebody has the most unbelievable happy hour of all time. You're like, this place is great. We got to go out there. We got to check that happy hour out. They've got $3 burgers or something crazy like that. You're going to wind up taking a couple beers, some shots. Now they made their money back on you. And not only that, they also filled a spot that would be empty at that specific time period, which creates the ambiance of, hey, this is a happening spot, and we got to check this place out more often.
And on top of all that, you create a satisfied customer because they're like, I just got the best deal in the world. And I'm going to tell all my friends about it now.
Totally. Value.
Yeah.
I think that's something that people should start thinking about when they're, building a new restaurant or doing their own space. Is like trying to make sure you have a space where you could do that. Like we just talked about PAX, and they have like that nice little lunch counter where they obviously designed when they built it out to like be able to do that. It's harder when you go back and you say, I don't want to charge. I want to do this class or this event, but now you got to put all your tables together in a way and kind of mess up the flow of your because not everybody that comes in there wants to do the cooking class.
Yeah.
And they don't want their whole experience ruined because you have to readjust everything. So
Because you got someone trying to make some pasta right on top of where you're trying to eat dinner.
So if you have the opportunity, you're building a new place, maybe you put that in your thought. Like we might want to do this, or have like a space or like a show place where you can either do that or do your Instagram pictures, or have the class, but at least you have a dedicated spot in the restaurant that's not going to disrupt your whole.
That's thinking forward, I think, right?
Absolutely. I always got to think forward.
And we're going to talk a little bit
Keep
about
that finger in the air.
There you go.
3 steps ahead.
Shout out to Frankie K there. We are going to talk a little bit about building the Instagram account later, because there's an easy way for people to get traction back into their restaurants as well. And I think most owners don't necessarily know what they're doing on Instagram. We'll cover that in a little bit. But first,
All right, so last episode, Justin touched on some topics about building out a restaurant in terms of like vanilla box and tenant improvement and triple net.
That's right, and I brushed past it to get more into my self-serving interest of what I'm actually doing.
shameless plugs.
Absolutely.
And a lot of words that people maybe heard for the first time, or maybe you're saying, what the hell was all that you were talking about?
Like, what is a hole in the ground?
So good idea. Let's bring in a restaurant real estate specialist to kind of clear some of that stuff up.
And we do have Kyle Inserra today with us, and he's really going to touch on all of these factors, as he is a what?
Restaurant real estate specialist.
Such a sexy word.
Also famous on TikTok. How'd you get into this? Tell us your story.
How I got into where I'm at now?
Yeah.
So I spent 16 years in the restaurant business. Pretty much the high school, same story a lot of people have. Busboy. Actually was it was called Glass Boy was my original job. Washing glasses at a microbrewery in this awful room that was about the third the size of this room. Kind of just fell in love with it. After college, I was did what I thought I was supposed to do. I worked on Wall Street, Morgan Stanley, that whole 9 yards. And then after 9/11, I was like, screw this. I don't want to do this. This is not what I want to do. Went to the Culinary Institute, and I went to be a chef. That's what I thought I wanted to do.
Wow.
So, that's a long story in there. But transitioned out of that, and now I work with emerging restaurant brands in helping them plan their national expansion. So from a real estate perspective.
All right, good. All right, so we talked about last week a little bit. We got into us building out a new restaurant.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that we had to look out for, and we kind of brushed by the topic of, the real estate part of
Right.
it, and we were talking more of like the design part of it and like the things that come after the real estate part of it. So I guess a good question to start with before we get into some of the other things we talked about is, how is it from the real estate point of view? What do you think is the best way to determine where to open, or like a new spot or a second location? Obviously, there's different factors,
Yeah.
whether it's your first one or your second one. But
So I think, I'm a big believer on gut feeling. You got to go out and see the market. You got to be in the market. You got to feel it. But these days, it's actually taking a step back, even for local market guys and, of course, national guys. They're using a lot of technology to try to find these spots, like geofencing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
Yeah, we tried
So
that
basically,
for
they
a
wrap
little
you're familiar, yeah. They wrap a fence around the building. They tell you where everyone's coming from based on your cell phone data. I think that's good as part of the process. I still think, particularly in your guys, if you're a hands-on operator, you got to get a feel for the spot. You got to feel if this is your baby. If it's your first spot, you're probably gonna do it somewhere close to your house, where you know the neighborhood, you know the market, or you're gonna go to a big city where you're gonna, hey, this is where I want to be. I want to be in New York. I want to be in Chicago. But I think a lot of different factors come into play.
for sure, I remember actually reading from Restaurant Man. That's a Joe Bastianich book. I don't know if you read that or not.
bit. It's a great book.
But he talked about everything being like a real estate opportunity. So like something would present itself, and like every time they opened a restaurant, it was like a space would open up, and they'd just be like, well, we have this much money for this space, and it was just an opportunity, and they would jump on it and kind of build the concept afterwards, which is different than like the way I think about it sometimes, whereas like we already have a concept and we're like, where do we go next?
Kind of looking for the perfect
Yeah.
space to fit that concept.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's nice to have money. And it's nice to have like a pool of like
Right.
talent where they'd be like, hey, this guy can make a soup place. This guy could make a burrito joint out of this spot. But I think in general it's a different, for the independent operator, it's definitely a different story.
You make a really valid point too, where guys that are opening up their first spot, they go into an area that they know really well. They say, oh, this would crush it here. I know this place like the back of my hand. It's lacking this. How many times, though, do these guys go into these spots that might be oversaturated, even though they know the community, and don't necessarily hit it out the park with a home run, and then find another spot further down the road that does wind up being the home run, that was more the unlikely hero of a location?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of patience and a lot of like field work goes into it, and I think that's why, you need to balance your gut feeling with some real data. It's a lot of times that off the mark spot didn't work for some reason, but it might work for you. When a high visibility corner spot, for some reason, no one can make it work there. It gets stigmatized or for whatever reason. I think that, a lot of the big guys do it this way. They say, we want to be on this block. Okay, nothing's available now, but let us know when something becomes available on this block. That's what, it's that important to us. Some guys are looking for only second generation restaurants. Let us know when this spot goes out. We want to jump in there. So it is an individual, taste, I guess, but it depends a lot on your concept too. Some concepts have to be on main and main.
And that is, I guess, the cheaper route for a guy to go in and open up a bar or a restaurant is to look for those second-generation spots,
100%. Yeah. I mean, yesterday, a perfect example, a guy was looking at a space for a ghost kitchen, and adjacent to that space was a space that didn't have a kitchen, but had more visibility on the street. And, he was like, had to balance, do I want to spend $75,000 to $100,000 and build out a kitchen, or do I want to take the visibility on the street? So it's a lot of different factors, but ultimately, you got to sit with it for a while. I think so many people just look at a spot like, I would kill it in that spot. That's like 1/30 of what I think you should consider there. I mean, that when I hear, we would kill it there, tell me why you think you would kill it there. Why you over everybody over the last 25 years?
yeah, I agree with that too. I think a lot of times some people or businesses are in a rush to get somewhere, but they can't even explain why they want to be there. Yeah. And some people have asked me before, like, what's your opinion on opening this spot or doing this or buying an existing restaurant? I said, well, what's your concept? You know, like a friend of mine asked, "Oh, there's this restaurant that's available right now, and I want to spend $250,000 and buy this restaurant." And I said, "Okay, are you going to operate it as that restaurant?" And I said, "No." I said, "Okay, what's your concept?" But he couldn't explain it to me, you know. And I said, "Well, before you spend $250,000, you should be able to tell me in a sentence what you're going to do there."
Yeah.
Right. And you know, the other thing to get into is key money. Right. He's buying a restaurant that's failing.
Yeah.
Or interested in buying a restaurant that's failing.
Right.
So if you're not going to operate the restaurant as is that money even worth it? Like, how do you determine, is key money worth it, or should you just wait it out?
So, yeah. So key money to me is if you're going to buy that restaurant as that restaurant, then that brand has a value. Otherwise, it's essentially an asset sale. How much is everything from your combi oven to your everything I'm getting, how much is that worth? And I think we all know if I tried to sell any furniture, we tried to sell any furniture in a restaurant down the Bowery, we're going to get 10 cents a chair. You know, I don't care.
Right.
They don't care that you paid $50 a chair for it. So it's tricky. And I can tell you right now in this market, it's tough to get key money because restaurants are hot. Like, you know, I think which is great. I'm glad to see it. But it's tough to quantify that number. I mean, really the value is in the lease. And if it's a great location and somebody just couldn't operate it and it's in a town that, you know, should have a business there that should or should be supporting that place and that business should be doing well, I think the value of the leases is really what that key money is all about.
Do you have clients that may be holding off on entering into a lease, maybe thinking that the economy might scale back a little bit at this point? Maybe this is a dangerous time to be opening up a restaurant where they're paying a ridiculous amount in square footage in their restaurant spaces at this point, as opposed to waiting maybe 5 years or so or 6 years if we do wind up hitting this recession that we keep on, you know, fear mongering about. Is that maybe a better time to go into a restaurant? I know it's hard for you to answer this question considering that we are selling spaces, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think most restaurant owners are bullish. I think that they're a lot of times it's a lot of ego. Particularly chef owners are like, no, I want to open. I need to make more money. I got investors. I have this. Starting to hear a little bit more people concerned about that, about the economy, and you know, I'm planning on 20% down in sales. You know, in this local market, Westchester and Fairfield, I think landlords have to get a little more realistic with the rents. You know, you want these guys to stick around. You know, maybe $60 a square foot is not reasonable. But no, for the most part, I think they're more unreasonable. They're like, I need to find a space, and they have to, you know, some of these guys have better teams than others, but that's kind of our role. You know, I'm not just looking to get you in a 2,500 square foot space because that's what you want. There's ones available. You know, I want, you know, if I was working with a restaurateur, I want them to have 10 units. So I want you to trust the advice. So I see that as our job to sort of like, you know, you sure you guys are ready for this? Is this too much space? You know, how you get to that number and that point in your mind that you're ready for number 2, 3, 4. Hopefully you have an idea that, you know, you've done it before. But no, I think most guys are bullish and they're ready to look, but that you have a good dose of patience in there. You can't jump too quickly on that stuff.
For sure. Okay, so there's the question of, you know, we just talked about key money and pre-existing places, and then obviously there's opportunities of new places. There's a lot of new construction going up and like empty spaces, and we talked a little bit about that on episode 1. Help me out a little bit. I tried to briefly describe vanilla box, cold shell, hole in the ground.
Yeah.
Like,
I
what are we?
was like, okay, I turned the volume up when you guys said that part. Yeah, so I mean, landlords want to, you know, a good landlord wants to, typically they're familiar with delivering a vanilla box. So you actually described it perfectly. You know, there's going to be a rough flooring in there. Plumbing and electric will be brought to the site, but not maybe exactly where you want it. Ductwork is maybe on the roof, or maybe the ductwork is in place. It's not on the roof. It can be cut a lot of different ways, but I mean, I guess, are you asking should they take that versus a pre-build, or like?
I guess both ways. Like, how would you decide which way is right for you? And then, you know, once you get into it, understanding what you're getting into when you have an empty room, you know?
You know, I mean, I'm sure, I know you're going through this now. It's, expensive. Vanilla box, people think, oh, landlord's giving me this money. That's another part. The TI landlord's going to pay for it. He's offsetting that with the rent. This isn't just free money that he's not accounting for. You're paying for that one way or the other. So somebody wants a lower upfront cost. So they want to take the TI dollars up front. Some people want a lower ongoing occupancy cost. So they're going to, they're willing to sacrifice some of that money, say, hey, we'll pay for the build out. My general thing is, if this is something that's going to stick around, the landlord should pay for it, because he's going to, even if it's a 10-year lease and you're out in 5 years, he still has a restaurant space that he can lease, and it's all his, and you did most of the work for. So, or you help build up the brand, the recognition that it's a space that a restaurant can do business. But by all means, he should be contributing to that. That would be my suggestion. But and these days you'll see some big name chefs say, yeah, cool, and they're getting it. They'll say, yeah, we want the TI dollars to be $1 million, because I do want you to pay for uniforms, everything. That's the only way we'll come in here. We'll pay the rent. You charge me more rent, but I'm not paying anything to come in this space, and that's happening now too.
Right. And landlords definitely don't want to spend any money if they don't have to.
No.
So, the tenant improvement, right? How do we figure out, what's the best way to figure out, like when you're negotiating with a landlord, how do we get to that number?
I generally would say 1 year's rent would be a realistic number. But ask for the moon. You ask for everything, and then have them come back. It depends on the landlord too. Some guys are like, some old school landlords like, the rent here is $10,000 a month. I'm not doing any work. Take it as it is. Used to be a restaurant. Tommy killed it back in the day. He was doing $50,000 a week out of here. I don't need to do anything to the space. You get a guy in there. The grease trap hasn't been cleaned in 10 years. The hood doesn't work. There's no return. I think depends on the savviness of the landlord and your brand. If you're a credit tenant who has a history of paying your rent and bringing people, and you provide value to his building or to the neighborhood, it's worth his while. Particularly a big name national landlord is going to be like, we understand that we've got to write a check here to get this done. In these Westchester towns, it might be a little trickier. Yeah. I mean, I could speak from experience to know that it's definitely, they don't want to spend any money. They're more likely to say, don't pay us rent for 6 months. But they're not going to write you a check. But I know you're familiar with this conversation, but many guys think it's free money. They think they're just going to get a check from the landlord.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people do think that, I don't have to have any money to open up because they're just going to pay for everything.
Yeah, they're going to give me $300,000.
I mean, your operating expense, that's like you said, they're going to build it in one way or the other. So, you got to kind of weigh in, how much am I giving up here and can I afford it later?
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't want to be out in 6 months because you forecasted wrong.
Right. I mean, I think that it's a decision that part of the role that I'm in now is important to explain that to guys, because they do think that it's, when this is over, we're gonna get a check for $300,000. You're like, no, not quite. Yeah, not exactly. So, and they'll tell you like, I'm not paying for your plates, so this is what it is.
Okay, so then you get through to that part and you start talking about that. And you're negotiating a lease. You often hear triple net inside of the lease, right? I've yet to hear somebody say where something isn't a triple net lease, right? But what is this? What does it even mean?
So, the landlord has expenses for the building that are for his building. So insurance, and common area maintenance charges. He's going to plow. He can pass those expenses on to you as a tenant on a per square footage basis. So he's not allowed to upcharge for them. But he can say, hey, it costs me $100,000 a year here. You have 20% of the space. It's $20,000 a year for your TI. And they break it down to a square footage. So a lot of people just was going through this with somebody. Like, how much is the rent here? Okay, the rent is, roughly $25 a square foot, triple net. So they're like, okay, so it's $25,000. I said, no, well, the nets are X. It's actually like $17,000. They were like, what the hell, what the hell is that? So, yeah, you want to know what your total all-in rent is. So that's, every restaurant operator wants to know, like, how much is it going to cost me per month? Don't give me that's where we kind of have to bridge that, is like our language, and then filter it out to, it's going to cost you $20,000 a month to run this place.
Right, because that's how you're going to figure out your numbers and if you can even do that.
And they adjust every year. So he has the right to, when the taxes don't go down, so they go up. You can get a bill right now. A lot of restaurant owners are getting statements from their landlords that say, oh, "Why my rent's $3,000? Why is my bill $5,200?" So yeah, it pays to know. I mean, that's a whole conversation about reading the lease too. But
A couple of things that we were talking about too in a lease when we were talking about building it out, like those, the TI and the triple net, those things are pretty common. You're always talking about that within a lease. What are some, like, I'm going to call it hidden gems, or things that people don't think about in leases that they could kind of use to protect themselves, like that they end up getting screwed on later? Like if like if there's a septic in the building and something happens with that, and you think it's a landlord's problem, but now it's not in your lease, it's your problem.
yeah,
Or like HVAC or something like that. All those things that you think are part of the building, but are going to fall on you.
yeah.
What are some things you got to look into when you're signing a lease or reading a lease that are going to protect yourself from those things that you don't necessarily think about?
So my first one is the assignment and subleasing. So everyone's like, we're going to kill it. We got all this money together. We got our merch in. We got the menus. We got the chef. We have the location. And then something happens. And I don't know, can you curse? But it hits the fan, and you got to get out of there. You can't afford it. Your family's suffering. It's a nightmare. You don't want to turn to your lease and find out, like, no, you can't. You want to know what your options are. So typically what happens, the language is something like, we would get the lease. The landlord would say, you can't. There's no assignment somebody. I'm going to hold you to the 10 years regardless, meaning you leave there, he can come after you after 3 years. You have to pay the 7 years. Now, we would get that and redline it and say, no, we want the right to bring a tenant in. You have the right to refuse them. You have to approve who that tenant is. They're going to come back and say, okay, so long as they're the same quality tenant that you are. So there's a lot of back and forth there, but for me, that's the number one. Because, landlord wants a 20-year deal. And you're like, 20-year deal? Yeah, we're going to be here forever. No, that's not always the case.
Yeah.
So that's one. And then if you're in a shopping center, exclusivity is another big one.
Exclusivity in terms of what?
If we open up a pizza shop, the landlord can't bring in another pizza shop. A lot of language in there, too, is even if we're an Italian restaurant, we want it to say, you can put another Italian restaurant, but let's say we sell mostly pizza, they can't sell more than 5% pizza. You see it a lot with coffee. Like Starbucks doesn't want another coffee shop in the shopping center if they're there.
Right.
So if you have a Whole Foods that sells coffee and you have a Starbucks, it's, believe it or not, they're like battling out over that.
I did look at a space with a buddy about a year and a half, 2 years back, and it was a new shopping center that we were looking at, and they were really trying to fill these spaces hard. And we were looking to fight for exclusivity over beer taps, to be the only place that could have more than 10 taps in this environment, period. Otherwise, it's just a lot of competition in there, right? So I can imagine that exclusivity is something that happens often.
Yeah. I mean, the landlord doesn't want to give it because what if...
He's limiting his options by doing that.
Yeah. And let's say we open up let's just say a better example is a taco place. But then he has an opportunity to bring in Chipotle. That's a more high, we're talking about bigger national brands now, but he's not going to want to reject the Chipotle. So he's going to want to keep his options open. So when it comes down to a mom and pop, I think your safest bet rather is to start to nitpick on the sales. Say, okay, well, we're a beer place and we do 30% of our beer sales. We don't want another craft beer place coming here with 10 taps to do this. Or if they do, they can only have their beer sales be 10% of their. So those are two big ones. But, you had mentioned HVAC or something like that. That the maintenance and that stuff is usually on the tenant. As opposed to when you're in an apartment and your heat breaks, you're like, hey, landlord, I got no heat. They are not going to pay for that. If that goes down, your best bet is to find out before you sign the lease and say, okay, we're responsible for it. Great. I need to see a copy of the repair log. I need to know when this was installed because you don't want 2 weeks from now. Like, if there's no record of that thing ever being repaired, the temperature could change 1 degree and that thing has to work a little bit harder and then it craps out on a Friday night and you just opened. That's not an ideal situation. So, and then you find out later that it's $40,000 to fix. So, But those would be a couple big ones.
So that would actually go into some of the key money things too, right? So if you're walking in and you're buying a restaurant and you think, oh, it's got AC already, it has this, and then you open and then that AC is not enough to cover, to cover your space, and you're like, well, okay, well, it's hot in here, and now you have to either get a bigger one or more tonnage, or it's broken or something.
Yeah.
So those are all hidden stuff.
I think now more so than ever with all this stuff, chef owners, owner operators need to be, have their hat on for everything.
Right.
So even if you don't know anything about HVAC, YouTube some videos.
You gotta learn it.
Go up there with the landlord with a flashlight, act like you know what you're doing, because he's like, oh my god, this guy's he's on
Mike,
it.
100%.
Yeah, but yeah, me too. Like every time we have a repair guy come in, I'm following him, and I'm like, I want to see what you do, because you charge me $300 to like change that belt, then I can go do for $12 at what's the auto store place? AutoZone, right? You can go get a belt at AutoZone at $12, and I could save myself $300 just because you know how to do that.
Yeah.
So it's like stuff like that.
And for a cost saving down the line for sure. But yeah, I mean, you want to know, because these things are going to come up. Everyone thinks they signed a lease and you're never going to need it. I'm
a fridge guy. Yep. I'm an oven guy. I'm a draft system tech.
Yeah.
I'm an IT guy sometimes. Whatever.
Yeah.
But
because you don't want to be the guy like, anybody know who can repair a compressor in August? Yeah. Good luck with that.
It's a lot more expensive than repairing it in February.
Yeah, right. I mean, lease stuff is like, I think that's where I'm not trying to pitch our services at all, but like you get a lawyer to read the lease, and they're not a restaurant specific lawyer. They're going to look at the rent, the insurance. They may have a little feel, but you want a restaurant-specific lawyer if you can find one. Get a reference from somebody. It's pretty easy to do. But then, like our team, we have a paralegal. So all she does is read restaurant leases all day long. And she can overlay that stuff with what this lawyer, whether they're restaurant-specific or not, and just know the market and that, like, hey, in this market, this is not possible. If this happens here, we're not paying. As a team, we don't allow our tenants to pay for that, so that's coming out. But a lot of lawyers, they take the $2,500 to $3,000, and you can sign this lease. You're good to go. And the guy's like, okay, great, thank you. I had a lawyer do it, so I'm all set. No, not quite. No, not quite at all.
So you rep both restaurant owners and landlords, right?
Yep.
How do you switch hats? Like, how do you switch how you're looking at a situation?
It's hard, man, because I have such a soft spot for restaurants. So, I still have a small piece of a restaurant now.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. You can find us at. I think the landlord piece is just from a professional perspective. I like it because then the restaurants come to you, and you can vet stuff out a little bit. But I equally like the hunt for a restaurant. Some guys are like, I need it now. I need a 1,000 square foot space now. Okay, so I like the challenge of it, but in general, I think it's kind of like some days you want IPA, some days you want Scotch on the rocks. It's both. I think the landlords like to know that you deal with a lot of tenants, and tenants like to know that you deal with a lot of landlords, so that you kind of know your stuff, and you can you're not just you're getting doors open for them, and they know that the landlord can't mess with you on the lease. They can't mess with you in the TI. So I think being well-rounded in my role helps. But for sure, it's landlords are like, I'm not paying them a dime. And tenants are like, we need $300,000 in TI. Like, all right, let's get going. Let's roll up our sleeves. Yeah. So that's what the day is usually like. But they're both cool. I mean, I like still being involved in the restaurants on a day-to-day. And I really see my role more as like a defender for like, no, they're not gonna sign this. They're not gonna do that. And I think that restaurant owners like it because they're not dealing with the salesman. Yeah. Somebody who's throwing a bunch of triple net language at them, or what are CAM charges? What's exclusivity? Can I sign my lease? Like, if it snows, who's taking care of the parking lot? Where does my garbage go? Which people never you get in there, you're like, yeah, where do we put the garbage? So, which side note, really cool in the South, they have refrigerated garbage rooms, which I thought was so it doesn't stink, right? Pretty cool. That's bougie, right? That's your word.
Super bougie.
Super bougie.
But yeah, it's all it's
cool. All right, we know you got busy stuff going on. You got things to do, so we'll get you out of here.
Thanks.
You want to plug anything? I know you have a very entertaining TikTok.
It is, right?
It's very entertaining.
Do I want to plug anything? No, not at all. Obviously, if social media is a great way to get a hold of me. But I'm happy to any restaurant that's out there or landlord that's out there that would like to just for free. I just generally want to help. I have a real sore spot for like the restaurant owner standing in their window, like on a Friday night, just looking out. I'm like, this poor guy, dude. Like he's standing in front of a $600,000 castle that nobody's coming into, and he's gonna have to leave there and leave everything there. So generally, like I spent a half hour this morning waiting for a meeting under the restaurant owner hashtag on Instagram, asking restaurant owners under that hashtag, like what kind of information can I put out there that might help you. So if there's anything like that, I'll be happy to answer it.
Cool.
Where can people find you? Just so.
It's at Kyle Inserra on Instagram, INSERRA. And I work for CBRE. We're a national restaurant group. So, but we're located here in Stanford. So it's only a team of 3 of us. Sounds like a big behemoth, but it's only 3 of us. And happy to answer any questions.
We will put all of your information down in the show notes so everyone could find you and get to the website and check out your TikTok dancing and all that good stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. I can do one for you right now.
Get it going.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming through, Kyle.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Right about now, Waiting on Fries court is in full effect. Judge J residing in the case of Waiting on Fries against the Yelp Reviewers of America. Prosecuting attorneys are Anoom Bandel and Justin Zato. Order!
What do you got, Nooms? What do you got over there? Something good. He's smiling hard.
So here's a review for a local health food eatery. This person clearly didn't understand what they were getting into when they ordered a salad. The review goes as follows.
Can't be that complex.
You'd be surprised. I bought a salad and it was $18. They charged me for everything I actually put in the salad. The protein, the cheese, and any toppings I chose. On top of this, my salad wasn't even chopped up. The salad was mediocre and should not have cost this much. I should have just drove to Chop. I would have gotten the same salad with better stuff in it for only $10. The workers were also very rude. The man who chopped my salad, she just said the salad wasn't chopped, had a nasty attitude and was giving me rude looks. I was very upset with this.
I want to know what the rude look is when he's chopping the salad. Is that just the I hate chopping salads?
Maybe my man was just
90th
focused
time?
on chopping a salad, but also, how were you not expecting to pay for everything you chose to put in your salad?
That's the key, right? Because right off the bat, she loses all credibility.
100%.
So anything else she says is immediately, like, irrelevant, right?
You're surprised they charged you for the protein and the cheese. The protein is like the main component.
They charged me for the protein and the cheese and any toppings I chose. Holy shit, what a ripoff. Because, proteins and cheese is free.
100%.
And they just deliver that to the restaurant, and then we sell it for whatever we can sell it for.
Clearly, she expected to only be charged for the container the salad came in.
It sounds like it was her first time ordering a salad that was not maybe a signature salad on a wall that you just order and you get everything in that picture inside of that salad. So, like, yeah, you
It sounds like it was her
charged.
first time ordering anything, period.
It's my first time eating out.
First time at a restaurant, guys.
And then she complains the salad wasn't even chopped, but the guy chopping her salad had a nasty attitude. So, wait,
What are you
was it
complaining
chopped
about?
or was it not chopped?
Which take a pick. I don't know. People have different experiences. People have different places that they go out to. There's different qualities of life out there. Like, I've stepped into some places where I'm like, oh, this is not my typical eatery. This is way too fancy for me. That's why I don't come visit you in Manhattan.
Understandable.
Right? I got to stick to where I know things, KFC and Taco Bell. Okay?
Right. You stay in your lane.
Stay in my lane.
Stay in your lane.
2020, I'm winning.
I think generally the problem is that people are just surprised when things cost things,
When things cost money.
or they're just not aware of what things cost, right? Because,
You
if-
got this other one.
yeah, we have this other one, same style place, also like a healthy eatery type.
Okay.
All right, and we have if you're looking to eat healthy at Midtown Manhattan prices, this is your place. For one Cowboy Chow wrap, it's $9.75. Okay, but if you want chicken, it's $12.75. I made the mistake of getting shrimp, $14.75 for a salad wrap. With a seltzer, it comes to $16.91 for a quick lunch. Obscene. I'd pay less in Midtown. The food's good, but not at all at that price. You're better off going to the local deli next door, where you get 2 huge sandwiches, and that would be less. Shaking my head, or SMH, but I'll let you know what that means. So I mean, right here,
I mean,
$9.75 is not that expensive. Like
Not
when
at
you're
all.
talking about organic chicken.
And for sure, you're not getting anything of that quality for less money in Midtown. Manhattan.
Midtown.
It's not gonna
You're gonna
happen.
get a salad with shrimp and a drink
For
in
less than
Midtown Manhattan
$16?
As somebody that worked in Midtown Manhattan,
How much did you pay for
the
your
last
lunch?
XX months? There were definitely the pricier places that were about $16 for lunch, and then I found other places that were like $10 for lunch, and like I was
Jay-
filled
Jay,
either way and had decent quality.
We
either
know
way.
you stay in your lane, and we're not talking about Taco Bell.
Yeah. No, I'm saying these various delis that are all over the place, but like this sounds like maybe somewhere that's slightly more commercial than your mom and pop deli that's putting out awesome sandwiches for $10.
I think what it comes down to is people have to understand you get what you pay for. And if you're talking about organic shrimp with
Yeah.
a fresh salad, that's getting prepared, $14.75 is not an
That's not bad.
unreasonable price.
I hate, that's why I hate that O word. I don't go shopping for the organics. I'm cool. I don't need the organics in my life. I'll pay a little bit cheaper and make do with it in the kitchen.
I mean, that's just you.
I like fresh shrimp. I don't know what you're buying. But
I'll just go sit the next couple plays out this.
We should probably check our voicemail.
Oh, it's blinking.
Hey, you've reached Waiting on Fries. Send us your voicemail.
You have one new message.
Hey guys, I'm trying to grow our Instagram account for my restaurant and I'm not seeing great results. Am I missing something?
the Instagram question.
The good old Instagram and Facebook routine.
So then the question becomes, do you have proper content that people really want to see, or are you just not reaching the proper audience?
That is definitely the question. I mean, it's so common that we'll talk, right? When you're going to try a new place, somebody says, hey, have you tried this place?
What's the first thing you do? You
First
check
thing
it
you do is like, now I'm like, let me check the Instagram and see
Yep.
what the plates look like or see what stuff is going on. I steer clear of the Yelp reviews because we know why. but
like-
definitely go to the Instagram.
Yeah, it's like a new website, if you will. Right?
Instagram maybe is the new Yelp.
You know how many people come into a restaurant and just like, I'd like this. And they just show you a picture of,
Yes.
whatever's on the Instagram. They're like, I want whatever that is. I want it. I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but this is
It's
what I
a
want.
gigantic milkshake with about 12 Twix popping out of the side of it. And
Unbelievably, though, that is
is
what the people want.
That is, they think they want that. They end up not wanting it after they have it. But
Yeah, we're never going to do that again. That was way too overkill.
I think that's the key right there is what you're putting on Instagram. You want to
Match what you actually have to offer.
what you have to offer and what you want people to want.
Yeah.
I've said that before. Like we want people, when you're designing a place, you want people to want what you're serving.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to say, what do people want? Well, what do you want people to want? And that's what you're doing with Instagram. You're creating, your vibe and you're creating your persona and your brand and all that stuff. And you're creating, their desire to come in.
Right.
So if you're putting something that's like, if you're putting something on Instagram that they're going to come in and consume and it's not that good and it's overpriced and then they're leaving the place and they're like, oh, it looked so good on Instagram, but it's kind of like that $17 milkshake with
called a
800
gimmick.
things. Yeah, it's a gimmick, and they're probably not going to come back to
No.
your place. So like, you want to put your best foot forward on Instagram
Absolutely.
and put the stuff that you really want people to want on Instagram.
Can I just say this? Have you guys seen Mount Kisco Diner's Instagram?
Mount Kisco Diner has
Unbelievable
Great.
Instagram
Yeah.
presence, like unbelievable. It's so good looking.
Never seen it. I'll have to check
do
that
have to
out.
check
But
it out.
I think also what's really important with talking about social media and Instagram is to know where we're currently at. You kind of have to know where this all came from and spurred from. Remember Applebee's? It's like a place that used to exist and be packed all the time,
on the Jersey
nonstop.
Turnpike, right?
Is that where it's at now? With that said, this was a time period when anything could be put out and nobody really knew what anything looked like. They didn't know what to compare anything to. And part of that's because our phone cameras weren't that great and there was no Instagram set up where people could take these beautiful photographs where others could see them. And all of a sudden you started seeing Applebee's kind of fall off. And with that being said, people were starting to see that there was more out there that they could spend their money on, that they've worked hard for, mind you, and they want to get a better bite or a better drink or a better cocktail, which now that's where we are now, where everybody is expected to uphold the same standards of putting out these beautiful photos.
You know what they also want is they want to be able to eat something or enjoy something that they can show to somebody else.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just pulling up this Mount Kisco Diner Instagram here. It's MT Kisco with a K Diner. And I mean, they've got 61,000 followers here, 856 posts. They've got hashtags all over this thing. They've got beautiful photos. They've got grilled cheese being opened up by the hand and gooing all over the place. Like, this is something.
Someone is doing a very good job with running that page.
They're doing an extremely good job. Another thing to look at, too, is that their views are there on these videos. The views are 12,000 views on their 61,000 followers. So, like, yeah, people are watching this. They're taking notice. They're probably checking out the place as a result of it. And
100%.
There's other restaurants that are saying, hey, that's the competition. We can't let them get too far ahead. We need to step our game up now, too. Or we die. That's it.
Yeah, and the biggest thing to do is you can't just make an Instagram, make a post, and think that it's gonna, it's gonna go by itself.
No,
you
can't.
You gotta put your time into it. So if you're gonna make an Instagram, you make a post. You should get on a posting schedule so that it's kind of regular, and the people that are following you kind of get you used to how you're posting. Like maybe one time in the morning.
You and I used to talk about that. If I can bring up one other place, Fortina. Their Instagram page is unreal.
Beautiful. Yeah.
You used to wake up and just see a Fortina post as soon as you woke up.
As soon as you woke up. You want to hit people when they're commuting in the morning.
Consistency.
Yeah.
When they're thinking about lunch, when they're thinking about leaving work and where they want to go, you want that to kind of pop up. So you have to kind of have a schedule. Like, I'm going to make a post at 7 a.m., 11 a.m., 4 o'clock p.m., and then stay on that all the time and throw a story here.
And it's not about just making a post. It's got to be a quality post. It's got to be something that people are
Quality
going to want to
post.
see.
And something that you want people to want again. Mm-hmm. So when they come in your restaurant and say, I want this, it's actually one of your, premier items that you're selling. And it's not like some random piece of cheese.
Quality is the big word here, right? And bigger than just quality. It's quality and quantity of the posts that need to go up to keep this growth operating substantially, using hashtags within those posts, right, Just?
Yeah, I mean, you just heard Kyle talk about his use of hashtags earlier. He's
to
waiting.
Find, right? To find restaurant owners?
To find restaurant owners. That's what he was using it for. If you're a restaurant, you want to find your diners. You want to find the people that are going to come in. So, you got to find that hashtag that makes sense and maybe search it, like some pictures in there. Make sure you're putting that same hashtag in there. And that's how you grow. Show up in all the different searches, not just people looking for your restaurant. Location is key too. You want to make sure that you're tagging your location. So if people are in the town, they just hit the location and look through pictures that happen at the location, they'll find you out.
And that's 100% correct. And I like to say too, if it's quality and quantity for the posts, you do need quality over quantity for the followers, because you want to make sure those followers are actually somebody that can get to your restaurant, right? They're not in Hawaii. They're not in Russia or China.
Exactly. If you're in New York and a guy from Hawaii is like engaging in every post.
That's great. He's going to tell his friends, but he's not actually coming through the door.
He's probably not going to come in. So, that's definitely something you want to be on top of.
So what do we say? It's consistency that you need to put out there, right? You do it every day, 3 times a day.
Engagement.
Right, engage with the followers that are making comments on your place.
You also kind of do a good job about that, offering those like little contests and stories to this.
Getting people to jump in on something.
That's another factor is, run a contest. Get people in the door.
Tag a friend.
Exactly.
Like
and all of a sudden you're seeing growth.
You're getting eyes come in.
And you've done nothing.
I don't have 60,000 followers, but,
No, but we're building there. We're getting there, right?
Yeah.
And then the last thing you want to do is research what's doing well for you. So if you see like some posts are working, maybe you have a post of like your staff, eating something or sharing like a drink for the night, and you notice that pictures with your staff are getting better engagement than just pictures on a plate. Then you want to play a little bit more into that.
You want to keep doing what works.
I think the number one tip also that I see people that don't understand Instagram, people that don't understand Instagram don't understand is that stop taking photos through the Instagram app. It does not take a good quality photo. You need to take a photo through your phone's camera app and then upload it to Instagram thereafter. That's how they get these beautiful photos and not something that's blurred and slightly pixelated and downsampled automatically.
Or hire somebody to take a bunch of pictures.
Sure, yeah.
Or nowadays you can take a bunch of pictures with a real camera and just upload them on your iPad or whatever.
Totally. If you do all those things, I think that you'll see consistent growth, especially considering you've already built the castle. People will come.
People will come, Ray. Speaking of which, I got to go.
Good talk. See ya.
If you like what you heard, smash that like button. Because, algorithms.